Start.
This is impressive. You're way in Ohio, and I'm way here.
All right, my name is Annika Wolfer. Today is Friday, April 16th, and the time is 8:56 a.m. The interview is being virtually conducted and recorded, and today I'm interviewing Terrance Inda, who was born on June 2nd, 1926, in
Right,
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He
right.
served in World War II between June 1944 and 1946. Terrance was a transmitter for Morse code, as well as a troop carrier in the Navy in the years that he served. During our meet and greet, I learned so many interesting things about his life, and I can't wait to interview him today. This interview is sponsored by the Bell Tower Memorial. And for starters, Terrance enlisted in the war when he was fresh out of high school. He was only 18 years old when he enlisted. And my first question off of that is, did you have to do any basic training before you enlisted into the war?
Yes, I mean, we had a program in high school. It consisted of uh, sessions of phy ed, and also I we had an instructor who was a radio ham, and he taught us Morse code. I wasn't particularly planning on using Morse code because I wanted something in the health service to be a corpsman.
Yeah.
But when I was in boot camp at Great Lakes, uh, we were tested for our various abilities. And naturally, because I had some instruction in Morse code, I aced that test. And
Nice.
they decided to make a radio man out of me. And when I had my interview, it was done by an old timer who was kind of a rough old chief. And he said, young man, I think we're going to make a radio man out of you. And I said, I don't want to be a radio man. I want to be a corpsman. And he got about as close to me as I am to you. He said, look, Mac, either you're going to be a radio man or you're going to go to sea as a deck ape. I'll give you 2 seconds. I said, I'd love to be a radio.
Well, that's one way to get that kind of job.
Well,
Yeah.
so anyhow, I decided to do a little research, and I found out that the Navy had 3 communications schools: Biloxi, Mississippi, uh, Fargo, North Dakota, and University of Wisconsin campus in Madison.
Mhm.
Uh, there was a saying in the Navy that's a little bit vulgar, but it boiled down to the fact that I didn't want to go to Biloxi, Mississippi.
Mhm.
And Fargo, North Dakota, that's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Over the years, I did some pheasant hunting out there. But
Mhm.
so my choice would be Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah. That would
But
probably be my choice too, if I was in your position.
when I left for the service, my dad, who had been in World War I, gave me some advice. He said, keep your eyes open, your mouth shut, your bowels moving, and don't volunteer for nothing.
Hmm. Pretty
So,
good advice.
right. So, anyhow, next day I was sitting around waiting for my assignment when some guy stuck his head in the door and he said, any of you guys know how to type? Well, I had been on the, I was a high school papers editor and I had to learn how to type. And I went to Marquette High and we went to chapel in the morning.
Hmm.
But they said, now, if you go to church in your home parish, and then you, you can take typing while the rest of the class is in chapel. Sounded good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. And I learned how to type. Not very well, but I could type.
Yeah, that's good.
And so where am I going with this? Okay.
Was it challenging to learn how to type?
Some guy stuck his head and he said, any of you guys know how to type? Right then and there, I broke my daddy's advice. I volunteered. I said, I know how to type. He said, come with me. As luck would have it, I was typing up the rosters for the various fellows that are going to be assigned to various communication schools or radio schools.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I know my possibilities, and here comes a draft with my name on it for Fargo, North Dakota. Now, that's no place to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I took off and I went to sick bay. And they said, what's your problem, Mac? And I said, I think I'm sick. I got a sore throat. Stuck a thermometer in my mouth. For some reason, it was slightly elevated. So the guy popped the pills in my mouth. He said, come back in the morning and we'll see what we can do for you. I went back, and I didn't go back. I went to the PX and ordered a malt, and I nursed it, and I sat there until I was sure that draft had left for Fargo. So I came back, and the chief there said, where the hell have you been? And I said, I'm kind of sick. I didn't feel good. He said, well, get your rear in there. Go to work. We'll get you another draft. Next draft came through Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very impressed by that. That's one way to get the way that you want, by cheating the system a little bit.
So the next morning early, I was right in front of the line, ready to go to Madison.
Mm-hmm.
So later a bus came up. They put us in a bus. This was the Great Lakes in southern Wisconsin. I'm on my way to Madison. And the bus pulled into Madison. This was a Saturday, getting ready for a football game. There were all sorts of beautiful girls walking around. I made the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up radio school. And that's
Wow.
that.
And that's that. That's how I got into Madison for the drafting. Do you know if anybody else did the same thing that you did, or were you the only smart one that wanted to? You're like, oh, I want to go to Madison, but they're not going to put me in it, so I'm going to figure out a way to go. Like, did anybody else do that?
I don't know. Nobody admitted it. Neither did I.
That's probably for the best until now you can share that story. But that blows my mind. That takes some guts to do that. So I'm very impressed by that.
Well, anyhow, that was it. So I went to radio school, learned Morse code. And then it came time for me to be assigned to a ship. They put us on a train to San Francisco. No accommodation for sleeping or eating or anything. In a cattle park, we were on our way. They got to San Francisco, and somehow they lost my records. Probably because they expected me to go to Fargo, North Dakota. I had, I think, $2 in my pocket, and they didn't make any provisions to feed us. But I remember we stopped in, can't think of the name of the town, early in the morning. It was like 4 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't had anything to eat since noon the day before.
Yeah.
So there were some wonderful ladies standing there on the platform of the station with donuts and
Nice.
nice girls. Got
Mhm.
it out of San Francisco, and I sat around there. I didn't have any money, couldn't go anywhere. So uh, I thought I got to get some money. So I went into San Francisco and I got a job setting pins in a bowling alley. And I I forget what they paid. It was so much per line.
Yeah.
No, I ended up with a couple bucks in my pocket again.
Mhm.
And now I think now I'm going to go to the closest restaurant and have a meal. I was like, "You guys, get your rigs over here. You're going down the outgoing unit." So here I got $2 in my pocket, no place to spend it. But anyhow, uh, they pull up to the pier, and there's the rust bucket that I was going to be a member, and there were a bunch of looked like a bunch of pirates or something
Mhm.
standing here, and they said, "We're betting on the fact that we had to walk like a gangplank from the pier to the ship. We're 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 betting that you ain't gonna make it." The ship was kind of still moving a little bit up and down. Somehow I got over there without falling into the ocean,
That's good. That would have been bad.
and wasn't but a couple hours later we were underway. Now, the, the Pacific Ocean isn't normally very stormy. It's
Mhm.
what you call it Pacific from peaceful. But that section around San Francisco is always rough. So I wasn't on that ship more than 10 minutes. I was seasick.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, I won't, I won't gross you out with any description of my symptoms. But I tell you, I thought I was going to die and I was hoping it'd be soon. I was so sick.
Oh no, that's awful.
And some wise guy came by. "What's the matter, fella? You sick?" Nah, I'm not sick.
What did he say to that?
I don't remember. It's probably nasty, but I I went down and they gave me a bunk and I laid there with a bucket next to me.
Mhm.
Away we went. Uh,
That's
and, and I wasn't getting any better as the hours went. And all of a sudden the chief came down, said, "What are you doing in your sack? Get your rear end up to the radio shack. We're not paying you for a ride around." So I went and I became a radio man.
that's
And
good.
2 days later, I recovered. While before I recovered, I was sitting there with a bucket between my legs, taking Morse code. I don't know how accurate it was, but nobody complained.
Mhm.
That's it.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about the baseball scoring for Morse code? I know we talked about it a little bit in the meet and greet, but it's just such a funny story that, you know, it'd be fun to hear again.
Well, yeah, the cook, we had an ugly old cook, but he really was a great baker. He made great pastries and stuff.
Mhm.
And he would come up at the Radio Shack and get the scores. We'd give him, uh, I forget the name of the uh, wireless company. They would send us athletic news, and we'd make a ship's newspaper.
Mhm.
We, in exchange for this information ahead of time, he would give us pastry and we would supply them with the information, never realizing that son of a gun was using that information to bet with his fellow cooks and that.
Hmm. And so you're like, he's like taking all their money for making bets.
And now, geez, when we found that out, that is not good.
No.
You guys could have some of those guys didn't have a sense of humor. And so when we told that's it.
That's it. You're like, no more. We can't do that anymore.
And we reversed it. We said to this guy, look, fella, we know what you did. And to keep our mouths shut full, you better stop that right now. No more information, but you better keep giving us the pastries.
Hmm. That's funny. That's a good story. He's kind of like what you did when you wanted to go to Madison. He was like trying to cheat the system a little bit, getting something from other people, you know? So he was pretty smart too by doing that, but it wasn't a good thing to do.
Well, it sure as hell could have been dangerous.
Yeah, that would be bad if he messed with the wrong people.
Right. Anyhow, that is it. So I was on an APA, the first letter of a ship's designation.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's a line ship, like a battleship, a cruiser, destroyer, or it's an auxiliary. We were an auxiliary. We were on a troop transport. Our job was to get them there, put them ashore, and then we stood by for take on casualties. Because we had 2 operating rooms aboard ship, and we always carried surgeons, and we always carried Marines, as it turned out. And the Marines usually had a surgeon, and we would put the troops ashore and then stand by, take on casualties. When we had as many as we could accommodate, we took them to the island of Guam, where there was a big Navy hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they were treated in Guam and then transported back to San Francisco. But we never did that. We always stayed in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
We would get as far as Hawaii. They got our little Marines, and then go to an island. Most often we went to Molokai, which was known as the leper colony. Maybe you've heard of that. Leprosy, a ocean island colony, and leprosy was supposed to be highly contagious.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't anymore. It is shot of penicillin. Okay. Back in those days, that was a death sentence. They put the people on Molokai, just spread it. They died. So, but we had no contact. We just used the island to practice how to get off the ship quickly, efficiently,
Yeah.
so forth. And so that was our run usually from one of the islands, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Philippines, land our troops, pick up our casualties, take them to Guam, over to Hawaii, and then wherever else they wanted us. Now, I said that pretty quickly, but this was a ship that had a top speed of about 13 knots or about 14, 15 miles an hour.
So very slow.
So over this vast expanse of water, it took a long time to get anywhere.
Yeah. That would. What was it like to transition from the military to like back to civilian life, or like to what normal should be, you know?
I mean, back when it was over,
Uh-huh. Yeah. So when the war was over, what was it like to transition back into that?
and that was easy.
It was easy.
Yeah,
That's good. Did you I know you were talking about how you went to become a dentist. Did you start your schooling right after the war?
yeah. Well, there was what they call the GI Bill. Um, for every month of service, you were given a month of schooling. Plus, well, I had 2 years, so I had 2 years of schooling coming,
Mm.
plus a year. So I had 3 years of schooling um, coming. And then later they uh, uh, made it a little more generous. I had 4 years of school. Now, dentistry took 4 years,
Yeah.
a minimum of 2 years uh, for pre-dent. I really at first was going to be a physician, but I had a friend whose dad was a dentist, and I didn't know what dentists do, but I thought I'd be like him, so I thought I'll be a dentist.
Hmm.
Right, dental school. Uh, I had 4 years coming, so I thought, well, I'll use that for dental school because that was more expensive, and I would earn my way through pre-dent for 2 years if I could do it.
Yeah.
I could get admitted. Thank God I did. Marks were good enough, and I went to Marquette High School.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now I'm going to Marquette U. Uh, I had a lot of my teachers were just pretty, always made sure that I was a Marquette High boy.
Hmm.
Not even
That's good.
as you can. So I got pretty good mark.
That's funny. Um, what do you consider to be the most important contribution during your service?
Probably the fact that I helped uh, maintain communication. Uh, we had to maintain radio
Yeah.
silence. We couldn't transmit out, but we could take orders and maneuvers. And that was my job to make sure we could
Hmm.
communicate between the guys that are giving the orders and we are the guys. Also, uh, I was part of a JASCO, or Joint Assault Signal Company. That was the acronym. And it was our job to go ashore and maintain communication between the beach and the ship.
Yeah, that's a very important job. What
You
you
know,
did was very important to be the radio man to get all the information where it needs to be and collect all that information. So that, yeah, if they didn't have you, that would be very hard to communicate with everybody that's trying to work together.
we could use the light, but that's still uh, communication with Morse code. I never really learned how to do semaphores,
Hmm.
but uh, the Marines always carried their own JASCO, so I never really had to go ashore
Gotcha.
once in a while, but not very often.
Hmm.
The vast majority of my time in the Navy was aboard ship at sea, going somewhere and going at 13, 14 miles an
Hmm.
hour. It takes a hell of a long time to
Yeah,
get
it would take a long time. You're slowly just trucking along, very, very slow, but yeah.
Um, what brought the war a little bit close was it was actually Okinawa is when the Japs first started to use their kamikazes or suicide planes. And I remember one day we were off Okinawa at the time. I wasn't on duty. I was sitting out on like a deck just outside the radio shack when this Jap Zero came whizzing by. And I tell you, he was so close. I could see the expression on his face.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I set a record getting the mover in back out to the radio shack with the steel between me and his. I moved real fast when he got me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wasn't being brave. I was getting the hell out of there.
Yeah, gotta go. What are some of the life lessons that you've learned from the military?
Say that again.
What are some of the life lessons that you learned from being in the military?
You know, I knew that question was coming, and I was thinking, I ain't supposed to learn a lot of things. But one thing I said, don't judge a guy by the way he looks.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
I first went aboard that ship. The first day I looked at these guys and I thought, what zoo did they get these guys out of? They were the raunchiest looking bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And found out, these were pretty good guys. Mm-hmm. I remember one guy that he'd been in the Navy a long time. He was our chief ranger, and he didn't look like the old American boy. I don't know what he got in mind, but we got a brand new ensign as our communications. He's going to interview all of us. And our interview, and we got done. And there's one guy, he's there. Where the hell's Atkinson? And we all got his spot. We said, well, he's down below some of the stuff. Tell him to get his rear end up on the double. So he came Atkinson. He hadn't shaved for a couple of weeks. He had a kind of a scruffy beard. His clothes looked awful.
That's funny. Well, that's some really good advice from the like I'll probably be using that too, to not judge somebody by the way that they look. That's some good advice. And I'm actually kind of surprised that that's like the most important thing, because normally it'd be like, oh, perseverance, or like something that affects you. But I like that that's like kind of like a mindset that you learned from the military. So
well, I tell you, we cultivated the cooks because we were given rations, and when we were carrying troops aboard, we only got 2 meals a day because we were so crowded.
Mm-hmm.
Facilities weren't all that great. But when we discharged our casualties, and we were just our crew aboard, the cooks fed us pretty well. And remember, we couldn't afford to eat like that today, because when we were in the Philippines, there were a lot of lobsters.
Mm-hmm.
Waters there. And when we were tied up, the little Filipino kids would come over and tiny little boats come alongside and they want to sell us lobsters in exchange for cigarettes, because at that time, government functions in the building had broken down. And cigarettes were the medium of exchange.
Yeah.
We could buy a carton, not a pack, but a carton for how much was it? We could buy the carton from our own ship stores for 50 cents.
Wow.
And packs of cigarettes for 50 cents.
Hmm.
They come along and they sell us lobsters for like a dime or so. And they didn't even cook, and they're cooking, so we'd have lobster dinners. Now, that's luxury, let me tell you.
That is luxury. Yeah, that'd be really good. Yeah. I think it's a pretty good trade. Lobster for cigarette, like that'd be good because it'll feed your bellies and it'll probably be really good lobster too.
I learned to smoke in the Navy, but then after I got out of the Navy, I quit again. So fortunately, I never smoked.
Hmm.
I may not have been here today.
Yeah. It does a lot of damage to your lungs, so that's good that you never did.
I had a brother who went to med school, and while we were in school, the American Dental Association and the Medical Association had conventions, and to get us to attract us to their displays, these conventions, they offered free cigarettes. So while I was in school, I could have afforded them.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I never took.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, that is about the time that we have today for our interview. So in closing, this has been an interview with Terrance Inda regarding his service during World War II. My name is Annika Wolfer, and the time is 10:28. And I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to this interview, and most importantly, thank you for your service. I had a lot of fun getting to know you as a person, and so I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this interview with me.
Hey, the time went so fast. I enjoyed your company.
It did go so fast.
Yeah, thanks.